Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Gemology for Schmucks. My name is Peter Nelson. I'm here to guide you in everything you need to know about gemstones and gem cutting, at least at the beginning. Today, what I would like to do is share with you my advice for anybody who is interested in getting into gemstone cutting. I would like to share with you my 3 favorite types of crystals that I believe are perfect for any lapidary. And I would also like to share the other types of crystals that a lot of people think are a good idea that are actually a terrible idea. I know because I've tried them. So let's begin with the positive. The crystals that I absolutely adore and think are fantastic for a learner as well as an experienced cutter are these. Number 1 on my list is Goshenite. Goshenite is a colorless variety of beryl, and you can get pretty large crystals. Now, this is inexpensive. It's highly available. It's plentiful. But after you cut it, it's a very bright and sparkly gem. It has a very similar refractive index with quartz, so I do not understand why Goshenite seems so much brighter and so much whiter than rock crystal quartz. There's some crazy science behind it, I'm sure, but either way, what it comes down to is this ends up being a very attractive stone in a way that quartz does not. Goshenite is also quite easy to cut and polish. It doesn't give you the same drama that quartz does. Quartz, talk to any cutter that's been around for a while and they will tell you that quartz is not your friend. Quartz is also very inexpensive, but it is nightmarish to polish. Nobody likes it. And perhaps most importantly, the reason I recommend Goshenite is that as a colorless variety of beryl, it has the same basic properties as higher value gemstones like heliodor or golden beryl and aquamarine. Everything that you learn about cutting Goshenite will map over directly into cutting those stones. They have the same crystal properties, a lot of the same inclusions. So learning to inspect the rough properly and also how to cut and polish them is going to be directly transferable. And I am huge on directly transferable skills. No matter how much you waste Goshenite at the beginning as you're learning how to defeat the difficulties of cutting with a machine like this and all those angles and indexes, once you have done that on inexpensive material, you can be a lot more efficient with much more expensive material such as aquamarine. Tens of dollars per carat, hundreds of dollars per carat for certain colors of aquamarine. To me, that's good value. And especially if you are in an economy such as the United States, where there are pawn shops and estate sales, you may find that there are some excellent pieces of aquamarine that have actually been damaged. So if you know how to cut the gemstone, you can get that stone for a screaming deal because it's useless for jewelry if it's scratched. But the act of recutting and repolishing it brings it back up to a world-class level. You can get that stone for really cheap depending on the environment that you get it in. Many pawn shop owners know nothing about gemstones. They just want to sell the gold. So if you can be sure that it's aquamarine and you know how to recut Goshenite, then you are well on your way to giving yourself exponential growth in value. Knowledge is power. Well, knowledge properly applied. So Goshenite, personal favorite. The next is much more popular in the world of lapidary, and that is garnets. Garnets are highly available across the entire world, and because it is highly available, the basic laws of economics tell us that large supply equals low cost, or at least it should be. Especially when it's in smaller sizes, red garnets are not that expensive. But just as with Goshenite, we're looking for highly transferable skills. Everything you learn about cutting these smaller, deep red garnets is going to map over into those larger, much more collectible garnets. Why do I say they're much more collectible? Because large, clean red garnets with an open color are very rare. So while these may be very common, those are not. Everything you learn here will be useful there. So I suggest getting your hands on some nice garnets, learning to cut properly, learn how to polish properly, and then everything you learn from this is going to be mappable on those larger stones. And the third crystal that I suggest for every new gem cutter is blue topaz. Now, blue topaz is nice because it is very, very, very available and very, very cheap. But more than that, because price is not the most important thing. It is an important consideration, yes, but it's not the most important thing. Once you finish it, it's going to be an attractive gemstone. And even more important than that, topaz will gently guide you into the world of cutting stones that have cleavage. If you can learn to cut blue topaz, everything you learn from cutting blue topaz is going to map over to the much more expensive pink topaz and imperial topaz. If you buy enough of it, blue topaz can be $1 a gram. Imperial topaz of the right color can be thousands per carat. So again, transferable skills. Other stones that have cleavage are tanzanite. Do you really want to spend hundreds of dollars on tanzanite rough if you're going to be making mistakes that you could avoid? So get yourself some blue topaz, get comfortable with how to deal with stones that have cleavage, and then you can move on to higher value stones. Those are the 3 crystals that I love. Now what about the crystals that I hate? I remember it like it was yesterday, thinking, oh, this is a good idea. I should totally use that crystal to learn how to cut gemstones. I was wrong. It was a pipe dream. Number 1 that everybody starts out with and thinks a great idea, but is actually a terrible idea, is quartz. Just don't do it. When they are cut and polished properly, yes, they can look very nice, but even very nice quartz most of the time is not that high value. So why spend hours and hours and hours torturing yourself to cut it? Veer to the left, just say no. Save that for intermediate or advanced cutting life, not beginner. Because it will torture you and you may give up on the first stone if you decide to cut quartz for your first stone. It's a bad idea, don't do it. I so far have cut several dozens of stones, but only 1 quartz, and I'm not eager to go back. Stone that I hate, number 2, can actually turn out very attractive as well when you finish it, but getting to the finish line is torture. And that is synthetic corundum. Now, synthetic corundum has a very long history. To my understanding, it's actually the first true synthetic, which is to say that from its optical and physical characteristics is the same as the natural gemstone, but it was born in a laboratory or factory condition. Synthetic corundum is very easy to cut, but very difficult to polish, and it has a lot of quirks that natural corundum does not have, at least as far as my limited experience goes. One of those things is something called directional hardness. Certain facets are much harder than the other facets, so you struggle for 10 minutes trying to polish one facet, you go to the next facet, a couple of indexes over, and you overcut it very quickly. It's awful. It's really, 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 really bad. So if you want to torture yourself through it in order to get a nice, bright stone, then by all means do it, but I told you so, and you have been warned. And the last category of crystal that I would advise new cutters to steer clear of, and frankly old cutters as well, because why, is overly included stones, particularly stones that have structural integrity issues. If you've got a crystal that has a lot of cracks and fractures and issues, then you're going to have more experience in order to understand what is going to be left of that crystal by the time you're done cutting it in order to have an attractive gem. Calculating your financial loss of that weight that you've just destroyed is very important in the process of investing in gemstones. So if you're just learning how to use the machine, then I would say remove that layer of complexity. That way you can just focus on what you need to learn, which is how to actually make a properly cut gemstone. Having somebody who has looked at enough rough who can help you find those crystals is important, whether it's me or somebody else. So those are the 3 stones that I highly suggest. And if you're willing to commit to the marathon that is learning how to cut gemstones well, then I suggest getting yourself a basic set of rough of these 3 crystals that you can take your time to get to know, to work through all of those steps and become proficient at gem cutting. If you're not ready to do the full marathon, start with a little jog. Go over to a lapidary club. Cut a single stone. Find out if it's something that is for you. Otherwise, you can take a gem cutting boot camp. A gem cutting boot camp will get you through the basic 3 cuts that you need to know in order to cut gemstones and understand your machine. Once you've done that, then you can decide if you want to buy extra rough. But once you are at that stage, make sure that you contact somebody such as myself who can help you to find good crystals that are going to come out looking nice. Because once you've cut a stone and you've spent hours trying to make it as good as you possibly can, you want to be able to look down on it and go, I did a good job. Because once you get that feeling that I did a good job, you're going to have the confidence and the chutzpah to go that entire marathon. Because truly, you can do it. The journey of 1,000 steps begins with 1. So if you want to get in touch with me, head over to gemshepherd.com. Otherwise, hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, tell all of your friends about me, and until next time, bye-bye.